We will discuss about the pointers data type, right? Which are being offered by many of the programming languages like C, C++, Ada, Pascal, you know, etc. So I think in C programming language, you must have seen how pointers are being used and what is the advantage of using it, how to declare, how to initialize, and how to implement the same rather, right? You must have seen. So today probably we'll see here from its design point of view, the design issues and in what way they are useful for us in allocating the memory and deallocating the memory at the runtime. And we will then probably, of course, see while allocating or deallocating the memory during runtime from heap, what are the issues that you may probably result with, like aliasing and dangling pointer, then how they have been addressed by different programming languages when they are adopting these pointers as one of the data type and they are offering to the programs. So then subsequently we'll see how we're going to implement these pointers uh, and how we're going to implement the dynamic memory location and deallocation using pointers. Okay. Yeah. So as you know, pointer is a data type which holds the address of another variable of the same type. Right? It happens for P also memory been allocated. If for P also memory been allocated. Generally, for pointers, how much memory is being required, rather, to hold the 1 byte address, whatever the memory being required based on the, memory size that you have. So it will be allocated. Hardly it could be 2 bytes rather, right? So now the pointers assigned with address of A, it means A address is 100 here, which has been initialized to P. Now then P is pointing to this memory. It means this memory can now be accessed through A, or it can be accessed through P as well, rather, right? So if I have to access it through A, I just say A, but if I have to access it through P, I say asterisk P, right? So this asterisk will, act as a value at this P, okay? Which is nothing but if you have given some value to A, let us say for example to A you have given some 10, then 10 must have been placed here. And if I'm accessing asterisk P, that asterisk P will give me what? Will give me 10 here rather, right? Okay. So this is how the concept of pointer is being basically used in order to indirectly access a particular memory, right? Fine. So it provides a way to manage dynamic memory, as I said, right? So to allocate and deallocate the memory during runtime, you can use pointers. The memory being allocated, during the runtime from heap, you can do it with the help of pointers. Okay, but then you have some problems associated with it while you are, getting it allocated from the memory from the heap, during runtime. We'll probably discuss about the problems as well, like aliasing and dangling pointers, right? So these are the issues which are associated with dynamic allocation and deallocation. We'll probably discuss about this. A pointer can be used to access a location in the area where storage is dynamically created. Yes, heap. From heap, if you want to access the memory, you can access it with the help of pointers. So this is all we are going to discuss, of course. The design issues of pointers. What are the scope and lifetime of a pointer variable is a major issue here. In of course last class I have make you clear about what is the scope and lifetime, right? Scope is the part of the text in which the variable is being accessible is set with the scope, whereas lifetime, the memory with which that particular variable being binded for how long is what the lifetime of the particular variable. Say for example, if you have declared a variable a, okay, within some scope, let us say, okay. So this particular scope, the block, like for example, this is open block, this is a closed block. The blocks are generally being, represented or, implemented with the help of braces in C programming language. So this block. So let us say A you have declared in this block, then the part of the text, this is the block, this is the part of the text in which this A is visible, accessible. Then this is said to be the scope, right? Scope of A. Said to be the scope of A. If I have another block, let us say I have outer block, and there is some other part of the text here, but this A is not accessible here. Since A is declared within this block, it can be accessed only within this block. If I want to access it, outside of this block here, I cannot access it, right? Because the scope of A is only limited to this particular block. When I'm trying to access out of this block, I cannot access, right? This is what the scope, right? Now, coming to lifetime. Lifetime is generally when you declare a variable, what happens, the memory is going to be allocated for that particular variable. For example, in C programming language, you have declared A, then for A, 2 bytes of memory been allocated. But then this memory been allocated at some corner of the entire memory. This is your, let us say, the RAM. During the execution, of course, the memory being allocated, for the variables before being in use. So now the memory being allocated for A somewhere here, across some corner in this particular memory. But then you must be executing some other programs as well in alongance with the program which you are executing, rather, right? Then what happens? The memory which was being allocated to A could have been given to someone else during the execution of some other program in parallel to your program, rather, right? Then what happens? The memory which has been allocated to A, for how long is nothing but until this memory being given to someone else is the time, this particular memory being associated with this particular variable, which is said to be the lifetime. Okay, lifetime. Got the point. But then again, when you come for the execution of this particular program from the other one, rather, right? Again, the system is going to allocate the memory for A somewhere else, right? Based on the free chunks that are available. This is all being taken care by the operating system, rather, right? Whenever a particular program is in execution, so based on its requirement, it will allocate the memory during the runtime. So when you have deactivated the other program and activated your own program, then when you're executing your program, then what happens? This particular variable again needs some memory. So the memory for this particular variable is going to be now allocated again. But this is not going to be the same place at which it was been allocated before, rather, right? Got the point. So now this memory, which is now being allocated to this A, is what its memory, rather. But then how long again this memory going to be associated with this particular variable is said to be the lifetime during this execution, rather, right? So lifetime can be changed for any variable, right, over the same execution as well, right? If a variable you want to be associated with the memory permanently over the entire execution, then you declare that variable as a static variable. Okay, you declare that variable as a static variable. So static variable lifetime is constant for the entire execution. Okay, anyway, we're going to see, of course, when probably we discuss about static variables. Fine, I think I hope it is clear the difference between the scope and the lifetime, right? Now, what is the lifetime of a heap dynamic variable? Is, as I said, how long that particular variable memory being associated with that particular pointer is going to be available for that particular pointer is what it's said to be the lifetime. We'll probably discuss. And are pointers restricted as to the type of the values which they can point? Yes, you can restrict. Otherwise, what happens? You will result with dangling pointer kind of issues. Probably we'll first discuss the issues. In order to resolve these issues, these are the things which will help you out, rather. Are pointers used for dynamic storage management? Yes, of course, right? Indirect addressing are both. Yes, we'll probably discuss it. Should the language support pointer types, reference type, or both? Yes, there are some languages who support both pointers and reference type. For example, C++, right? So we'll discuss what are the operations that you can perform on pointers. One is assignment, which we have already seen. When you have declared a pointer and you will be assigning it with some kind of address, right? That is an assignment operation. And another operation is dereferencing. To access the value being pointed through pointer, you will be using dereferencing. This is said to be dereferencing. Okay, this is another operation. Assignment is assignment operation. Assignment is used to set a pointer variable's value to some useful address, right? We have seen. Dereferencing is the value stored at that location represented by the pointer value, right? If you have some variable and a pointer, okay, this is a variable, this is a pointer, and then you assign the address of the variable to the pointer so that now P can point to A's memory, and you want to access the value of A, you can access it through asterisk P. This is said to be dereferencing. So dereferencing yields the value stored at location being pointed by that pointer, rather, right? Got the point. So that will give you 2 here, rather, right? Dereferencing can be explicit or implicit. In few languages, it is explicit, like for example, C, C++, and all. There are certain languages where probably you find implicit also, right? C++ uses an explicit operation, right? Asterisk is the dereferencing which you probably use it, right? So in order to access the value being pointed by that particular pointer. Another point. We'll see with an example here, the same which I have discussed, right? In the next slide.
Sir, how it is done by implicit method, sir?
Yeah, we'll discuss about it. Fine. So let us look at this first example. Here you can see a pointer, and you can see at the bottom the assignment operation J equal to asterisk PTR is written here, right? This operation, I'll write it again here because it will not be visible. G equal to asterisk PTR, yes, right? So here pointer is a variable which holds the address of another variable J, right? J is another variable, right? So here, what is happening here? For example, if you are trying to allocate memory without the variable name, then that's kind of variables are said to be anonymous variables. These are generally being created during the runtime. Fine. So during the runtime, you can create anonymous variables without the variable name, right? Like for example, in C language, you have malloc option, malloc memory allocation, and in C++ you have new option, right? Of course, in Java, everything will be created during the runtime only with the help of new, right? So you can create anonymous classes also in Java, anonymous classes without name, right? Fine. So here, let us say without name, you have created a variable of which address, that is 7080, you have assigned to pointer pointer PTR. Now this pointer can access this particular memory in which some value is available. That is, let us say 206. Okay, available value is 206, and this value you want to assign it to, let us say J. So you can assign it with the help of J equal to asterisk PTR, right? So then what is happening here, you can see asterisk is a dereferencing operator here, which will act as value at the address held by PTR. Okay, so PTR is holding the address of this memory. So value at the address held by PTR is what? 206. This 206 will be assigned to J. Then in J you will get 206 value, right? So this asterisk is now here being used as a dereferencing operator. Dereferencing to access the value being pointed to the pointer, rather, right? certain problems associated with the pointers, like as I discussed before, dangling pointers, aliasing and all. I'll explain you with an example here. Example. You have heap. Heap is said to be the memory available at the runtime for access. Anybody can come and access certain part of this particular memory. Okay, so this is openly available for all. Now, what do you do is, let us say you want to implement some certain program. Okay, you want to implement certain program wherein you need certain inputs. Okay, you need certain inputs, and you do not know how many number of inputs are required, in order to get the result. Fine. In that case, what happens is, when you do not know how many number of inputs that are required, you may go for a larger size, array. This is one option which you can probably go with. As we have discussed before, arrays consists of a larger size of elements, right? Of homogeneous kind, of course, rather, right? So you can get some memory allocated with the help of arrays. Fine, but then now let us say arrays, when we are declaring an array size has to be fixed in C language, right? For example, you have fixed the size of array with 10, let us say, okay, or say 100. Now, while you're executing the program, you may have to supply some inputs, and you do not know how many inputs are required to be given or to obtain the output. Let us say most of the time you may have to give, let us say, 10 inputs or 20 inputs or 30 inputs or 5 inputs, and thereby you are able to get the output rather. So then what happens, this 100 element space which is being allocated to you will be associated with your program itself. And if you are using, let us say, only 10 input, then the remaining 90 element input memory is going to be wasted rather. And if you are using only 5 inputs, then the remaining 95 element memory is going to be rather wasted. So here, most of the time what is happening, most of the memory which is being unused is being wasted. If it could have been rather given to someone else, fine, that would have been made some constructive use of it rather. In case of time sharing operating system, right? For example, time sharing operating system such as time sharing and resource sharing operating system, where multiple users can access the server. Okay, so on the same server memory, all these users can write their programs and can execute rather, right? Let us say all of these users have been given of an array of, let us say, 100 size. Okay, 100 size, but these two users most of the time require only not more than 50 or 60. Okay, but then this may require, let us say, sometime he may require 150 or 160 also. So the time when he required 150 element space, he could not able to execute his program because he has only been allocated with 100 element space. When the memory been allocated with the help of arrays, what happens? The memory been allocated at the compile time. Okay, during the execution, you are coming to know that the number of inputs which are going to be required are going to be rather varied, right? It could be sometimes more than the size of the array which has been allocated to him rather. So in that case, he is not able to succeed, right? But whereas these users who can succeed, but then still they can be left out with lot of unused memory. But this unused memory cannot be returned back to the system during the same execution rather, right? If this memory could have been returned, the same could have been given to the other user who may require more than his size, then he could also have been able to complete his execution. Fine. So this is the concept behind coming to dynamic memory allocation and deallocation. how the dynamic memory allocation and deallocation concept came into being is because of this. Because in olden days, of course, now you can see there is a lot of memory available, but then in olden days, what happens? The server is being shared. Even now, of course, server is shared, like you can see with the help of drives and all. Uh, it's the requirement is at a huge level rather now with the help of these clouds and all kind of thing. But this was there before also, rather, right? So a server being shared by multiple users for their respective program execution. But then there are certain users who may not require the allocated size all the time. There are certain users who may require more than the allocated size. So to resolve this kind of issues, what we thought, it's better to go for dynamic memory allocation and deallocation. So what is a dynamic memory allocation and deallocation is when the user requiring the memory, as now we can see that the amount of memory that he requires is coming to know only during the execution. Now you can see all the tasks that are being executed on the internet. When you are carrying out some transactions, they are all dynamic rather, right? And for your transaction, how much memory being basically required also is being known only during the execution. Now this kind of concept you can see is very much indispensable in today's requirement, right? Dynamic memory allocation and deallocation rather, right? So this concept is very much essential in today's requirement, right? Since everything now we are trying to execute, or carry out the transactions. Even now we got programs to be executed during the. Now I probably show you my program execution also through online compiler. It means what? I mean, the programs which I'm going to execute, for them, the memory going to be allocated during the runtime from the server on which probably I must be executing this program. But at the same time, the same server is going to be used by millions of users at the same time. How the memory management is going to be taken care? In that case, of course, this particular concept, of course, rather plays a major role. Fine. So we will see now from the basics of the dynamic allocation and deallocation. Then automatically we'll see probably the kind of problems that are being raised during this concept, and how these problems can be rather addressed and resolved with the help of different programming languages. Also we'll see. Fine. Let us say in order to execute my program, instead of I get the memory allocated before the runtime during the compile time, I wanted to get it allocated during the runtime. Okay, so what I do is, if I need, let us say, one input, so for my input, whatever the memory required, I will get it allocated by snatching from the heap, right? I say snatch because anybody can go and then have access to that particular memory, rather, right? So once I get this memory, every memory, how the memory is going to be identified with the help of some address, rather, right? Every memory cell is uniquely identified with some kind of address. Now, this memory, I'm saying that is going to be, belonging to me, and I can use this memory. When I say that I can use this memory, I should show the proof of owning this memory. Fine. Owning of this memory is, done by knowing the address of the particular memory. The asset of the memory is nothing but the address, right? Like how, for example, if you say you are the owner of a plot, how do you say that you are the owner of the plot? Plot is available openly, accessible to everyone, rather, right? You show the document, registration document, right? When you show the registration document, it shows proves that you are the owner of the particular project. In similar fashion, if I say that I am the owner of this particular memory, I can claim this memory to be the owner of this memory only when I have the address. It is something like a registration of a plot kind of thing, right? So this address, if I own, then I can say I own this memory. But then in order to hold this address, again, I need some memory, okay? Again, I need some memory. And this memory, which is, holding the address of the memory which I have owned is what's said to be the pointer, right? I say this particular memory as a pointer memory, right? So this is how the pointer is invented. Pointer is invented during the concept of dynamic memory allocation and deallocation. For every data type, there is a history behind rather, right? So similarly for pointer, this is the history behind, right? In order to own some memory during the runtime, I need to hold the address of the memory which I want to own. So to hold that address, I need another memory, which I am saying is a pointer, rather, right? That is fine. Now I got the concept of pointer. How the pointer is invented is fine. I got it. Now with the help of this pointer, where I'm holding the address of this memory, I can go to that memory and access this memory, rather, right? I can access this memory. Good. So I am able to access this memory. Fine. I can place some value into it. I can, perform some operations by taking the value which is available in the memory. All this I can do. But then at the same time, some other user, because this is open to all, some other user also may own it, right? By, knowing the address of the same. So if some other pointer, let us say P2, is also owning the memory by holding the address, he can also be the owner of that particular memory. It generally happens, right? Unless you don't have a cross-check mechanism to ensure that a particular memory is being owned by more than one pointer or more than one user, you cannot ensure or you cannot resolve this kind of issue. And this particular concept, I'm calling it as aliasing. Okay, this I'm calling it as aliasing. What do you mean by aliasing here? When you say alias is nothing but another name for the original one, right? Nickname. Fine. So if this particular memory is being owned by two different users, this is possible, of course, rather, right? If this memory is being owned by two different users, then what happens? These two are the owners of this particular memory. Fine. This kind of concept is said to be aliasing, right? Because you have more than one name or one way of accessing this particular memory. Then what happens, after this, when pointer 1 have owned this memory by knowing the address, he must be thinking that he is the owner of this particular memory, right? He is the owner of this particular memory. And when pointer 2 have owned this memory by knowing the address, he must be thinking that he is the owner of this particular memory. It means both of them can access this memory, rather, right? Let us say, for example, pointer 1 is accessing before pointer 2 accessing, then pointer 2 cannot access it, right? And let us say pointer 2 is accessing this memory before pointer 1 is accessing, then what happens? Pointer 1 cannot access, right? So pointer 1 will be left a dummy, or I can say this pointer as a dangling pointer. Okay, this is what the problem that probably being encountered during the dynamic memory allocation and deallocation, right? When pointer 2 is accessing, what the point? When during the aliasing, when pointer 2 is accessing this memory which is being pointed by pointer 1 as well, pointer 1 cannot access the memory and he will be left a dummy, and this kind of pointer is said to be dangling pointer. Got the point? So now what happens? Pointer 1 thinks that I am also the owner. He thinks that I am only the owner because he owns the address. He does not know that P2 is also owning that memory. Then he may go to access that memory. When he goes to access that memory, he cannot access, and he left to be the dangling pointer. This kind of problems, when encountered, how they can be resolved, right? How they can be resolved is the language designer's responsibility to resolve these issues, right? In C or C++, I'll take the C example, how this is being resolved, in C, this kind of issue, right? Okay, so in C programming, you can see we have malloc function, right? Memory allocation. This is being used to allocate the memory during runtime. But then if you look at the syntax of malloc, you can find the cast type here. Then you find cast type you find before only. And malloc followed by the size of the memory that you want to access it, rather, right? Size of the memory. Then when it returns, you will be holding it in some pointer, okay? And it must be with some kind of data type. Fine. So this is the general syntax of malloc. See, in C programming, how this dynamic allocation has been implemented by resolving all these issues. I'll just take one by one. Malloc size, you're saying malloc size. It means malloc, memory allocation function, is going to allocate the memory based on the size that you have given as an argument. Okay, I'll give you one example here. For example, int asterisk p equal to sole owner of this particular memory. There is no question of another pointer can claim this particular memory, right? If another pointer wants to allocate the memory again, probably that memory will be rather different, okay, because this has now been binded with the restrictions. Okay, this is how we are resolving aliasing concept in C. Aliasing and dangling pointer issues are being resolved in C language. Okay, so by allocating, at the time of allocating the memory itself, we are imposing the restrictions on the same, saying that can be used for so and so, and the address of the same will be returned to some pointer. Now that pointer can claim that entire memory as the sole owner of that same. So there is no chance, you are not giving any chance for other pointers to rather point to that memory. Okay, so then there is no question of aliasing. When there is no question of aliasing, then there is no question of dangling pointer issue. Fine, so this is how being resolved in C. Of course, you can see in C++ as well, the new is taking care of the same, and in Java also you have new, which is going to take care of the same, right? I'm running out of the time. Probably I'll stop my discussion here. Probably we'll continue the same in the next class, right? I hope I'm clear what are pointers, how the pointers are useful, in what way the pointers are useful, the history behind the pointers, and the advantages are applications of pointers, which is nothing but for dynamic allocation and deallocation, and what are the problems that have been encountered during the dynamic allocation and deallocation, and how they are going to be resolved by the different programming languages. We have taken an example of C, how C is addressing these issues, which are being resulted during the dynamic allocation, okay, and deallocation, right? So I'll stop my presentation here.